All right, thanks, guys. Coming off a very nice college football week 2. We went 3-0 again in our premium selections on patreon.com/Brock Page. That's going to put us at 9-0 on the year. And if you want to check that out, you can go to my website, patreon.com/Brock Page, and check out my record. We went 3-0 in week 0, 3-0 in week 1, and we swept the board in week 2. So we are 9-0 in the college football season. We have not lost a game. We're 65% in our last 18 plays on that site, 62% in our last 30 best friends membership package, and 70% in our last 10 Major League Baseball tier plays. So check me out on that site, patreon.com/Brock Page. All right, we got ourselves a nice full slate of top 25 college football action. So let's go ahead and begin as we are in the Major League Baseball tier. Anyway, we're going to start with Washington State taking on Houston, and that's going to be a 9:15 Eastern kickoff this Friday night at NRG Stadium. Now, Washington State's -8, total 74.5. We did see steady movement toward the Cougars and movement downward on the total. Washington State opened 6.5 up to 8. Total opened 76 down to 74 and a hook. Right now, the Cougars are plus 260 on the money line. Both teams named the Cougars. Odd. Washington State minus 320 on the money line. Houston plus 260 on the money line. Now, Washington's 12-3 against the spread in their last 15. 7-0 straight up in their last 7 ball games played in September. Meanwhile, Houston on the other side, failing to cover in 5 out of their last 7 ball games. Just 1-4 straight up in their last 5 as the underdog. And when it comes to the total, Houston's 7-2 to the over in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward the number 20 ranked team in the country. I'm going to lean Washington State -8 and the over 74.5 in that game. Next matchup. Not on the board there, I don't think. It's Arkansas State taking on Georgia. Yeah, I don't have it on the board there. But anyway, Arkansas State taking on Georgia. 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff this Saturday in Georgia. The Bulldogs are -33. Totals 57.5. We saw movement upward on the spread and the total. UGA opened 31.5 up to 33. Total opened 57 up to 57 and a hook. The Bulldogs successfully covered the number in 6 out of their last 9. Meanwhile, when it comes to the total, UGA's 10-4 to the under in their last 14 ball games in September. Arkansas State's 5-1 to the under in their last 6 on the road. I'm going to lean Bulldogs -33 and the under 57.5 in that game. Next matchup, Maryland Temple, 12 o'clock Philadelphia. Maryland's -8, total 62.5. We saw a little bit of movement toward Maryland and movement downward on the total. Once again, Maryland's -8. Total open 63.5 down to 62 and a hook. Right now, Temple's plus 255 on the money line. The Terrapins are -310 on the money line themselves. Now, Maryland's 7-2 straight up in their last 9 head-to-head matchups with Temple. Meanwhile, the Owls on the other side, losers in 15 out of their last 17, taking on a Big Ten opponent. Now, total-wise, we're looking at a Temple squad who is 67% to the over in their last 6. Maryland on the other side, 80% to the over in their last 10 ball games taking place in week 3. I'm going to lean Terrapins -8 and the over 62.5 in that game. Next matchup, Buckeyes, Hoosiers, 12 o'clock Indiana. Ohio State's -15, total 61. We saw a 1-point move toward Ohio State. We also saw movement upward on the total. The Buckeyes open -14 up to -15. Total open 60.5 up to 61. The Hoosiers are plus 490 on the money line. Ohio State -680 for an outright win. The Hoosiers are 0-10 straight up in their last 10, taking on the Buckeyes. They've also dropped 6 out of their last 7, taking on a conference opponent. Now, total-wise, Indiana's 4-0 to the under in their last 4. I'm going to lean toward Ohio State -15 and the under 61 in that game. And before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines of personal leans out for college football week 3. But before we get into some more of that, I just want to quickly remind you to check me out at patreon.com/rockpage, which is my website. I have a college football package, and we are 9-0. We're a perfect 9-0 on the year, and we're looking to keep that up. We're never content. We're never complacent. We've had a good run, but we need to continue and stay focused and look to go 12-0 by the end of this week. Now, we're 65% in our last 18 plays, 62% in our last 30 best friends packaged plays. We are 70% in our last 10 MLB package plays. So check me out on my website, patreon.com/brockpage. There's plenty of free content there as well, including my current record. All right, let's go ahead and hop back into some more lines and personal leans. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, we have Pitt taking on Penn State, 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Happy Valley. Penn State's minus 17, totals 53. We saw a slight fade of the Nittany Lions in the early wagering. We also saw nearly a 5-point move toward Penn State. I'm sorry, a 5-point move toward the over. Right now, the Lions open 17.5 down to 17. Total open 48.5 up to 53. The Panthers are plus 600 on the money line. The Nittany Lions laying 900 on the money line themselves. Now, Penn State's 5-0 against the number in their last 5 at Beaver Stadium. They're also 4-1 straight up in their last 5, taking on an ACC opponent. The Panthers dropped 6 out of their last 7, taking on a Big Ten opponent. Pittsburgh's also 2-5 straight up in their last 7, taking on Penn State. Total-wise, Penn State's 3-0 to the over in their last 3, 12-6 to the over in their last 18. I'm going to lean Nittany Lions minus 17 and the over 53 in that game. Next matchup, Notre Dame hosting New Mexico. That'll be a 2:30 Eastern kickoff at Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish are 34.5, total 61. Saw a 1-point fade of Notre Dame, movement downward on the total. The Irish open 35.5 down to 34 and a hook. Total open 63 down to 61. The Irish have failed to cover in their last 3 ball games. They're also just 2-6 against the spread in their last 8. Total-wise, the Irish are 4-0 to the under in their last 4. Give me New Mexico plus 34 and a hook and the under 61 in that game. Next matchup, Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the Gamecocks. And that's going to be a 3:30 kickoff there. Alabama's 25.5, total 60. Saw a movement upward toward Alabama and downward on the total. Bama opened 24 up to 25.5. Total open 62 and a hook down to 60. South Carolina failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4. They're also just 3-4 straight up in their last 7. Alabama's 4-2 to the over in their last 6, taking on the Gamecocks. Give me Alabama minus 25.5 and the over 60 points in that game. Next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Stanford taking on UCF. And that is going to be, guess I don't have that on the board. Very strange. Stanford at UCF, 3:30 Eastern kickoff in Florida. UCF's minus 7, totals 58. Right now, the Cardinal plus 230 on the money line. UCF laying 270. Stanford 6-2 against the number in their last 8. They're also 5-1 straight up in their last 6. UCF on the other side 9-3 to the under in their last dozen. I'm going to lean Stanford plus 7 and the over 58 in that game. Next matchup, USC at BYU, 3:30 Eastern kickoff at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. I believe that's the name of the stadium, but it's at BYU. And right now, USC's minus 4.5, total 52. We saw a 1.5-point move toward the Trojans, a movement downward on the total. USC open 3 up to 4.5, total open 53 down to 52. Right now, the Cougars are plus 165 on the money line. USC laying $1.90 on the money line themselves. USC's 2-1 against the number in their last 3. They put up 45 points last week taking on Stanford. Total-wise, BYU 3-1 to the over in their last 4. I'm going to lean Trojans minus 4.5 and the over 52 in that game. Next matchup, Arizona State taking on Sparty. That's going to be a 4 o'clock kickoff in East Lansing. Michigan State minus 13.5, total 45. No movement on the spread. We did see a little bit upward on the total. Once again, Sparty's 13.5, total open 44.5 up to 45. Arizona State's plus 415. Michigan State laying 525. Michigan State failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6. They're also just 2-10 against the number in their last dozen, taking on a Pac-12 team. Arizona State on the other side, winners in 6 out of their last 8 straight up. They've also covered 75% of their games in their last 8 contests in September. They're also 7-2 against the number in their last 9, taking on the Big Ten. Total-wise, Arizona State 5-1 to the under in their last 6. Michigan State 90% to the under in their last 10. I'm going to lean Arizona State plus 13.5 and the under 45 in that matchup. Next game, Iowa taking on Iowa State. 4 o'clock, Iowa State. Now, the Hawkeyes are minus 2, totals 44. Pretty good two-way action on the spread. No movement there. We did see a 2-point move downward on the total. Once again, Iowa, the Hawkeyes opened and remain minus 2. Total open 46 down to 44. 65% leaning toward the Hawkeyes. 76% shaded toward the under. Right now, the Cyclones of Iowa State are plus 110 on the money line. The Iowa Hawkeyes are minus 130 on the money line themselves. Now, Iowa's 7-3 straight up in their last 10 taking on State. They've also successfully covered the number in 7 out of those 10 ball games. Now, Iowa State on the other side, they failed to cover in their last 6 straight ball games. They're also just 1-4 straight up in their last 5 at home, taking on the Hawkeyes. Now, total-wise, Iowa State's 12-3 to the under in their last 15, taking on a Big Ten opponent. Meanwhile, Iowa is 70% to the under in their last 10, taking on Iowa State. I'm going to lean Iowa Hawkeyes minus 2 in the under 44 in that game. Next matchup, Idaho State taking on Utah. And that game is not on my board, but it is on the board as Utah is 36.5, total 64. We saw a 1-point move toward the Utes and a 3-point move upward on the total. Utah opened 35.5 up to 36 and a hook. Total open 61 up to 64. Idaho State's 4-1 against the number in their last 5. Utah just 1-4 ATS in their last 5 themselves. Utah also struggled with Northern Illinois and BYU respectively. Now, they were wins. They were outright wins. And, I guess convincing when it comes to the score itself. But they did struggle with those teams at times. Now, total-wise, Utah 6-2 to the over in their last 8. Idaho State 2-0 to the over in their last couple of games. I think they should keep it close. Utah's going to win this one, but I think Idaho State should keep it close. No reason for Utah to run this one up. I'm going to lean Idaho State plus 36.5 and the over 64 in that game. Next matchup, Florida, the Gators, taking on Kentucky. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff at Kentucky. The number 9, Florida Gators. They're minus 8.5, totals 50. We saw a 1.5-point move toward Florida and movement downward on the total. The Gators open 7 up to 8.5. Total open 50.5 down to 50. 57% are leading Florida. And at the moment, Kentucky's plus 265 on the money line. The Gators are a perfect 6-0 straight up in their last 6. Successfully covering the number in 4 out of their last 5. They're 9-3 against the number in their last dozen, taking on Kentucky. Now, Kentucky is 0-12 straight up in their last 12 at home, taking on Florida. Of course, if you're into historical trends, they've also failed to cover in 5 out of their last 10 ball games. Now, total-wise, Kentucky's 5-0 to the over in their last 5. Florida 70% to the over in their last 10. I'm going to lean Florida Gators minus 8.5 and the over 50 in that game. Next matchup, the Kent State Flash. I think they're the Flash. Taking on Auburn. See if that is on the board. No, it's not. Kent State taking on Auburn. 7 o'clock Auburn. The Tigers are 35. Totals 51.5. So a 1-point move toward Auburn and movement downward on the total. The Tigers open 34 up to 35. Total open 53 down to 51 and a hook. 61% leaning toward Auburn. 55% shaded toward the under. Kent State 2-1 against the number in their last 3. 5-4 ATS in their last 9. Auburn failed to cover in their last 5 Week 3 matchups. When it comes to the number, Auburn's 2-0 to the under this season. 4-2 to the under in their last 6. I think Kent State should keep it close. Give me Kent State plus 35. And the under 51.5 in that game. Next matchup, Lamar taking on Texas A&M. And that one is not on my board either. 7 o'clock Eastern kickoff at Texas A&M. The Aggies are 43.5, total 63. So a half a point move toward A&M, movement downward on the total. The Aggies open 43 up to 43.5. Total open 63 and a hook down to 63. 71% are leaning Texas A&M. 52% shaded toward the over. Lamar 0-9 straight up in their last 9 on the road, failing to cover in 6 out of those 9 ball games. Texas A&M 5-1 against the spread in their last 6. 6-0 straight up in their last 6 at home. Now total-wise, Texas A&M 2-0 to the under in their last couple of games. 60% to the under in their last 10. Give me A&M minus 43.5 and the under 63 in that game. Next matchup.